Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our morning agenda review. Plan of the day is we'll go through the agenda review here with comments on this evening's meeting, and then Commissioner Strohberger would like to discuss OLF 8 this morning. So after we go through the quick agenda review with any comments for this evening's meeting, we will move into the discussion on the CAL. All right, Commissioner Berry, are you good for the invocation tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Hoffberger, you mind doing the pledge?
I would love to.
Okay. Any items that we need to add for this evening, Commissioner Berry?
If I could,
I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, Madam Attorney.
I did during the week try to brief each of you. I do still aspire today during the day to work out the Bennington Park easement donation. It's still not squared away, but if I can get it squared away before 5, I will be adding that to the agenda for this evening.
Okay. Commissioner Berry? Okay. Commissioner Strohberger, anything you need to add? Okay. All right, good. Jose, where are we on the ratification proclamations for this evening? Do we have? Where is it? Oh, okay. Harry Gilmore. Commissioner Berry, you're doing Frank Bradenberg's this evening? Okay. I guess Commissioner May's doing Melanie McLaughlin. I'm assuming that's who we got down.
He can do any of them you want. He's not here. So whichever one you want to put him on.
Okay. Who's this one? Who's doing D?
So this is a ratification.
Oh,
So Commissioner Mazo and 211.
got it.
These are not being presented.
Okay, so D and E is not being presented tonight, so we're covered on that. All right, anything from the clerk report?
No, there's the investment report, TDT update, and then minutes and reports for acceptance by the board.
Okay. All right, and as far as the agenda, if you guys would like, do you want to pull anything by exception and just go that route? Is there any topics that need to be pulled for discussion, you think, tonight in advance that we need to discuss? Do you have any? Commissioner Strohberger? Commissioner Hoffberger?
Yes, Melanie has put her name in for the Children's Trust Fund, and I just need to disclose that she's my aide.
Okay. And I will pull the TDT one just because I wanted some discussion on the applicants. I hope everyone has a chance to look at the applicants and our policy because it's we need to have a discussion on that tonight. And other than that, on the Wes, anything that we should be highlighted that was dropped or added?
Mr. Chairman, I think there was some discussion about 1-10, the HRC, Human Relations.
Yeah, just for the record, we got a lengthy report yesterday from the clerk in the afternoon that affected that, and I would ask that you send that to all the commissioners so they can review it, and we add that to a future meeting if everyone's okay with that. Okay?
And I'll distribute that information to the entire board during the day today, but it would be better to obviously not act on it this evening.
I agree. If everyone's okay with that, we can push that to either the next meeting or the following
And
one.
Mr. Chairman, we'll drop CAR 1-1, 2-1, and 2-2 as they're related to the CRA. We've rescheduled the CRA meeting for a future date.
All right. Any other changes for this evening that anyone wants to bring up for public discussion? I didn't have any other than those two. All right. Well, unless there's no further discussion, we'll end agenda review and we'll go into the CAL. All right. All right. We're going to call the Committee of the Whole Workshop, Board of County Commissioners, February 6, 2025. It's after 9:05. Please stand and I'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I know our first CAL, we had a pretty what's it? Oh, yeah. Why isn't that on here? Oh, yeah. Was the meeting properly advertised?
Mr. Chairman, this meeting was advertised in the Pensacola News Journal on January 30th, 2025, in the board's weekly meeting schedule.
Okay. We need a vote to approve it? We don't need a vote, okay. All right. On our first Cal, a little more than a month ago, we talked about Olafate. Commissioner Stroberger wanted to bring it back up today. I know we have Will Dunaway, and I see Brian here. Our concern, I think your concern, Commissioner Stroberger, was the progress of how we're going with the contract. I'll let you take the lead, and then hopefully the county staff can give us some updates.
Okay, so, good morning, everybody. So, although I'm new to this board, I'd say I'm not new to boards. I'm not new to boards, and I'm not new to negotiating. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I've negotiated for my companies that I've worked for, and I've also negotiated for my country. I can be trusted. What I know from the negotiations that I've been a part of is, and what I've learned from just my graduate studies, is that everyone in the negotiation has to walk away with a benefit that's acceptable in that deal. That's the real art of the deal. It's not coming in and, winner takes all. That's not how it works. Otherwise, no one's going to deal with the county. So we want everyone to know that Escambia County is open for business and ready to deal again and again, over and over again. I'm personally satisfied where we are after talking with Beulah Town Center yesterday. And I believe Beulah Town Center is equally satisfied with where we are presently in these negotiations. We have a critical need, and Beulah Town Center, I think, is focused on that, on the critical need of Escambia County. Yesterday, I met with Chad Horn and Brian Spencer of Beulah Town Center, and I had a good discussion about what I expect and what I think they can deliver. And that's what they told me, what they can do. They have provided 2 proposal contracts, not options. One which is $50 million for essentially, I'm really simplifying this, but it's 5 closings and $50 million over a period of time. And a second contract that was at, well, initially, if everybody remembers, back in December, we started at 42.5. It went up to 43.5. Well, that is $45 million now, with 1 closing. I'm recommending we select that one closing contract at $45 million, and
I think that's 43.5 million.
I'm sorry?
Is it 43.5 or
It's
45?
45.
So.
It was 43.5.
And there was an email that went out yesterday afternoon after I heard from Mr. Stroberger, who had been told that they were essentially offering the same terms that are in the contract proposal that said 43.5, but they were willing to up that number to 45 million. Our concerns with the terms of that contract would not have changed, but the price that they're offering.
Yep.
Okay,
Pass.
thank you.
Excuse, Allison, what happened to the original proposal of the 50 million? I mean, why was it lessened from what we agreed to in a public meeting?
So that proposed agreement, they did provide in writing. Commissioner Hoffberger attended a negotiation. Mr. Moreno and I were present at that negotiation. Mr. Spencer, Mr. Dunaway were also there. We, as the county, essentially told them that their proposal for the 50 million was not acceptable to the county because it was not a one-time lump closing. The concept that they came forward with was a multi-year phased closing of 5 separate phases with 5 separate closing dates that each had its own due diligence period with it. It would have, in my opinion, have not been exactly what this board was after. So we pushed back on that, and I would say that appears to be off the table at this point, meaning it's not, they are not offering a 50 million one-time closing. What they are offering now is a 45 million one-time closing with the terms that they originally set forward in a $43.5 million that was distributed a couple of weeks ago. Understood.
So again, this purchase sale agreement is complete and it's ready. It's not an option. it's a contract, meaning that there's no ambiguity. The county can begin right away, start to redline this contract with the attorneys for Beulah Town Center.
Commissioner
That's all I
Strohberger, I think it'd be useful if we had Madam Attorney tell us what are the hangups in the contract, because we have changed since our last agreement. I didn't like it, but I still think we're in a good place. But if we can't close, we're wasting our time. So I'd like to know what the hangups are in the contract now, so that the Beulah Center can hear them from us, so that we could potentially get to yes in a timely manner.
That's not really easy to do, I mean, right now.
But, Mr. Chairman, and I, honestly, I'm going to yield to Commissioner Berry and Commissioner Strohberger. You know, all I can yield to, and I spoke to Mr. Spencer as well, is we can't negotiate this thing in public. We cannot negotiate it in a committee of the whole or a board meeting. I mean, the standard of what's the bottom line number that we said that we were going to accept. You know, so there will be reservations for me in terms of the number that I said that I would accept. Because it doesn't matter what the details are with the attorney in this negotiation. It's the perception of what citizens heard us say on this dais of what we were going to accept. And so that's why I've continually said, you know, figure out how do we negotiate this outside of a board meeting with 5 people who are not negotiators, to get to what's the minimum that we would accept as a board, so we don't continue to go back and forth of here and there. And so, I mean, you know, regardless, we're going to have to address, you know, the bottom line at the end of the day. So, I'm with you. I'd love to hear from the attorney. Where was the breakdown, Mr. Chairman? I agree with
Well,
you.
maybe you can share with us how you think the negotiations are going. I don't, you know, I'm not in on them, so I only can do it is here.
Honestly, we're here to get some direction from the board. There have been 2 live sessions or 2 meetings. At the first one, we had Commissioner Hoffberger join us, and the second one, we had Commissioner Strohberger join us. I would say at this point, Mr. Moreno and I, have not provided a response or a counter to the proposals. I would say there are, at this moment, 2 ideas or concepts that have come to us from BTC. The first one is this 5-phased $50 million proposal. It appears to me, as of Monday, that is still on the table from their perspective. We have not countered that. When we met with them, felt like that was not acceptable to the board. The other one that they have added, it came to us on Monday as a $43.5 million offer. There were some issues with it. I did distribute by email sort of a one and a half page sort of bullet list of what the concerns that we had were, similar to some of the concerns we've had previously in negotiations with BTC. As of late yesterday afternoon, it has been represented to me verbally by both Mr. Dunaway and Commissioner Strohberger that they are offering to up that number to $45 million. We, Mr. Moreno and I think, need direction from you all if, at this point, you are comfortable enough with this, that we counter with some red line of the language that is just not acceptable, that I would not advise the board to buy off on. Do you want to call off negotiations with this group? Are you maybe okay with this phased $50 million proposal? That didn't seem acceptable at the time we met with them, but we really need some direction from you guys at this point, and then we can go and meet with whomever.
Commissioner Berry, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The multi-phase closing, I don't support that at all. I did speak with Beulah Town Center for a little bit yesterday as well. In fairness, I indicated that to them as well. The multi-phase closing, I wouldn't consider. And what was asked of me was, if they could have more time to negotiate. Whatever you guys want to do. 43.5 or 45 or 75 million. If the language stays as it is, I'm not going to vote for the contract if it's at 100 million with the language it is, because we're not going to see that money, and that's the issue. You can have time frames in there. You could have a time frame that says we'll close in 6 months. If another section in the contract says, well, actually, the conditions to close are A through J, then the 6 months that you referenced in one section is really irrelevant, because the purchaser's conditions to closing, those are going to be the things that have, from their point of view, that if we were to end up contractually obligated, contractually, partnered with these folks, those are the things that are going to have to happen before we would ever see any real money. And if those things stay there, it doesn't matter what the number is. But whatever the majority of y'all want to do, if you want to have more time to go back and forth, that's fine. As long as there are references to multiple lines in the contract that are just unacceptable, or personally unacceptable to me, I'm not going to support the contract. It's the same type issues that we had previously in discussions with them, and that language continues to come in, and Commissioner Stroberger, you said in your comments a couple times that it's not an option. It's a contract, but when you give the purchaser the power that this hypothetically would give them, it becomes an option. That's all it becomes. It may be a contract, but that's just a legal definition saying it's a contract. But the contract, the requirements that are in there for the purchaser to actually close, they control everything. I mean, and this is not even, and these are my personal issues, this is not even working through the bullet list that we got out of the attorney's office, which are, some procedural things and some legal things that aren't really my forte. But but whatever y'all want to do, if you want, I mean, more time is okay. If the time is going to be spent getting some of this language out, then maybe it's useful.
Commissioner Stroberger, and then we'll do Commissioner May, because he has light on, if that's okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Stroberger.
So that's why we have to have a red line day. And so to be fair to Beulah Town Center and to the county attorney, on Monday, when I was asked, should we begin redlining this, I said, no, let's not. We shouldn't. I mean, we didn't know which contract we'd go with. I'm happier with one now, and I think that we're ready to start redlining that, and I think that they're ready to start redlining that. And then we can get to the point where we're all happy with this contract.
Well, perhaps. Okay, and that's, Steve, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. To be fair to the county, we have redlined previous things that came, and the language reappears. And just but if that's what you think is the next most appropriate step, then that's fine.
Commissioner May.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I've certainly yielded to the two commissioners from that district. And I think that we're on a merry-go-round. We come here, for the last couple of years, round and round we go. And because the attorney is going to say, well, I need direction. Okay, well, they brought this proposal. We have to set the criteria for the minimum things that we will accept and give it to them in negotiation, because we're never going to negotiate something in its public forum. I mean, if we're looking at $50 million, that's a lot of money. We need to have negotiations where people can bring back, and someone that does this. I mean, this attorney has a bunch of stuff that's going. You need to have somebody that's laser focused on negotiating this deal for the citizens of Escambia County. And for me, when we started this process, we said we were going to get jobs that were $60,000 plus to create jobs. The second thing that was important to me was the best ROI for the citizens of Escambia County so we can get money. I'm not a negotiator. I've not been privileged to be in any meeting that the attorney says other people. I've not been there. I've not even had this discussion. I know the bar that I've set for me to find my support. Steve, I agree with you. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to get into any of those details. I know the minimum of what I said that I would accept in good faith on what I would do. Listen, I'd like all three of the developers. People keep saying they like all two. I like all three. They're all three of my friends. But there has to be a minimum, and there has to be a reality of what we've said to the citizens. And so it doesn't matter to me what's unacceptable in the wording, in the contract. I tell you, the citizens that I represent appreciate me, Commissioner Kohler, getting the most amount of money that they could possibly get so they can do something in their community. And if those numbers change, and then I can't be disingenuous in talking and not opening up negotiations. I'm all for all negotiations. If we just, in each meeting, Allison has said, I need direction. Well, here's the direction. Here's the minimum that I'm going to accept. And so, that's the minimum I'm going to accept. I'm not going to vote for anything that doesn't create jobs, that's $60,000 plus, and I'm probably not going to back down off of a number. I mean, and because I didn't put the number out there. The number was offered to me. I have to accept that. And so, I don't want to, we've spent countless amount of hours, not just the time of everyone that's on this dais, but our staff, and going round and round and round. And I think that in fairness to our attorney and in fairness to our administrator or whatever we have, give them the opportunity to say, this is what we're going to accept minimum. And, that's where we are. If not, we're going to keep going round and round and round. And I don't think that, whether you're at the federal government, the state government, or local government, to come to a board meeting to negotiate a contract is not efficient time, or it's not good stewardship, because that's just not what we do. I mean, that's why you hire attorneys to represent you. Even if I have an opinion when I'm in court, I don't say my opinion. I let my attorney talk for me, and I advise my attorney of what I'm going to do. And so that's where I'm at, Mike.
I have a question that you brought up. I'm sorry, I didn't see your light. Gazangle. Does the board think that we should have outside,
An owner's rep?
yeah.
Yes.
I'm kind of wondering if we have the right people negotiating. I'm not throwing anything out there, but we came up at our last meeting, and it's something, I don't know. I think it's a board decision to ask each other.
If y'all want to pay to have somebody look at it, that's fine. We have pretty basic feedback from the attorney's office of items that are objectionable and shouldn't be agreed to by a municipal body. If we want to pay somebody to arrive at the same place, okay, whatever y'all want to do.
I'm not saying, I don't know,
Steve,
I'm just-
these things are very problematic. Maybe I shouldn't say non-negotiable, but a number of items are very problematic. And if you want to pay somebody to produce a product, then okay. But I don't know that we're even to the point, when we get to a point before the board maybe signs a contract, and we want to have somebody review that to make sure that something hadn't been missed, maybe we get there. But we're pretty far from there currently.
Right.
We're not even, we're not very close.
No,
in my opinion.
I just threw it out there.
Just Steve, Commissioner Berry, all I'm saying is that Madam Attorney has said, in each meeting that we've been in, I need direction. Yeah, and so I'm not to go against anything that you're saying, is just simply say that as a board we have to give direction and let someone go negotiate the deal.
But I think we've given her direction. She's come back and said these are the problems. Do we have the wherewithal to vote and say, okay, well,
So I want to loop back to something Commissioner May said. And I think as a board, we have to decide what our top priorities are and what order those are. So we need to be real about the fact that we want to provide jobs and we want a good ROI on that property, and we want top dollar. I'm not sure that the ability to develop that property and provide jobs is going to be the same developer that is going to give us top dollar. I don't think we're going to get top dollar and the ability to provide jobs in a timely manner from the same developer. So I think we need to decide what that's worth.
And actually,
sorry.
Commissioner Holberger, and I agree with you. I don't know how we get there from here, but those have been the only 2 points that I've ever talked about in 12 years. And I've yielded to the guy to my right and the guy to my left to get there. But I know that jobs are important to you. They're important to all of us. And then, the maximum amount of money that we can get for the property. I'm not a developer. That property's going to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars in 10 or 15 years. Rather than, like Steve said, rather than numbers 40 million, 50 million, 60 million. No developer's going to go in and lose money. But we do need the money, and we need it now. interest rates are up. I mean, there's issues in your district, there's issues in my district. And quite frankly, you know, we all have a season of service in which we need to deliver to our constituents. I mean, we got Myrtle Grove coming up for a CRA. There's issues out there. I have issues in Brownsville. We are able to take this money and make a difference in the lives of people immediately. And that's what I'm interested in, changing constituents' lives now. Although I'm looking for the future for jobs, I want to know, how do I create a quality of life today for the
Right,
citizens
and what does
that are
that balance look like?
Yeah, and what's that balance? And so I would say it's unfair, and Commissioner Hallberger, you're absolutely right. Because we do have a new board of 3 people, we've not really had that conversation to lay out and give that direction holistically. We never had a discussion with all of our new board members before we brought people in with presentations. And that's unfair to the presenters, and it's unfair to the citizens, and it's unfair to us to come in and, you know, someone's buying a house from me and they're going to decide to me how much they're going to pay for the house. That's not the way it works. You know what I mean? I own a piece of property. It's not up for you to tell me how much you're going to pay me for my property. It's up for me to tell you what I'm going to sell my property for and what I want to happen on my property. You know, and so I think those discussions, I mean, I saw something earlier today, you know, that someone's saying that we're going to put a school out there. You know, I would never support putting a non-alarm producing product on a piece of property that's there. But there's discussion, and I know each of us have our own silos of individually having conversations with people, but collectively, we have to have a consensus of what we will accept and what we won't accept. And so I concur with you, but I don't even know if it's where it needs to be to move this forward for me.
So I guess my question is, what is everyone's top priority? Is it making sure that we're creating jobs in the community that pay well? Or is that top priority getting top dollar for this piece of land?
I think both for me.
Both for me.
Both can't rank number one. They just can't.
So let me interject this, because I don't seem to be getting a chance to talk, because everybody's just talking over themselves, and I'm trying to
Mr.
be patient
Stroberg, if you
about this
please
damn thing.
speak up.
So job numbers are pie in the sky. We're not going to be able to determine how many jobs are going to be there, and I don't think the developers are going to be able to tell us either. It's going to be the employers. They're going to tell us who's going to be employed there, how many jobs there are going to be, what type of jobs are going to be. We don't determine that. We just try to make the environment welcoming for them, okay? That's what we do. We have never had an appraisal on OLF8. I don't know why. I was told it was not necessary. So how are we going to determine what our minimum ask is for this property? The developers have been telling us, and we still have our highest bid on this property, and that's Beulah Town Center. So we can keep talking about jobs, how important it is. If we don't get off our duff and do something, we're never going to get those jobs. I want to sell the whole thing so we can start getting some tax revenue. I want to start creating jobs there. I've said this again and again. I'm an independent operator up here. I know exactly, and I've been polite. I said that I think that all 3 of these different groups that have been bidding on this can all do a great job. And that's probably true. But there's only one developer that I know, that I've talked to, that's asked me to come see them and has showed me what they can do, that I am confident they will do an outstanding job. Outstanding. I am happy with this developer, and you know who it is. So that's why I'm all in with this group. I have said from the beginning, I've told all of these different groups, is I'm not as worried about the money that we get for the property as I am about what happens on that property. What happens on that property and what doesn't happen on that property. Now, I think that we can get someplace with probably any of these developers. I just want the best. That's what I want. I want the best. I want a developer who is known for making fantastic things, beautiful things. And I think that's what the people in Beulah want, too.
Commissioner May? Are you line on, or are you done?
Yeah, Commissioner Stroberg. I certainly respect where you are, and you want what's best for the property. All I'm saying is, I've never, you're right. There are three great developers. They could have won negotiation with all three of them, as far as I'm concerned, and come back with it. We're not privileged to be able to hang out and talk. As you said, you want what's best. There's no way that Ashley, Steve, Mike, we know exactly what you want. In fairness to your passion, and I've yielded, quite frankly, to the commissioners to my right and to my commissioners to my left on this project to have a discussion of what we want, to have everybody's input. You know what I mean? There's things from conversations about a fire station to a school to a swimming pool to all those things to me that, don't make sense to me. And so, in God we trust, all others write it on the dotted line. And until we lay that out, it's really unfair. You know what I mean? It's ambiguous for us to have, this person bring this proposal, that proposal, and we have not laid out exactly what we want. And so that, in fairness to everyone, for me, actually, what do you want? I want jobs and I want money. But certainly, we have to have the vision, the 20, 30-year vision of where it's going to be, because quite frankly, like Ellison Field, none of us will be here when that thing's fully developed. None of us, not me, no one that's sitting on this dais will be there when that's fully developed. We have to have the foresight and the vision to see what we want that community to look like for our grandchildren, not just our children. So I get what we said, but we hadn't had that. And, rather our vision board, we had a consultant that came in. I mean, we've not really had that vision board to talk about exactly what we want this property to be with everyone's input. And I mean, I'll tell you, I have yielded, and I will continue to yield to my dear friend Commissioner Berry and to your district, because you represent Beulah. But I will stand firm on jobs and money. And as Ashley said, I can't have both. But for me, I can't take it as I can't have both. I got to figure out, how do I get both? Because that was the commitment to the citizens. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I may not be able to get there from this dais having this conversation, but in some way there's a happy medium where we can create jobs, create an ROI. And I do agree with you, Steve. Get this out of our hands, because we're not developers. Right. So that's where I'm in.
Exactly
so those are my 2 points. But also, I mean, it has to be clearly defined, because once we clearly embark upon this journey, there's no turning around. There's no going back, and we know there's a lot of fashions of a lot of people. A lot of people have a lot of ideas of what they want out there, I mean, and we're not going to make everyone happy, but we certainly should make. I look at this, Steve, and you were not on the board, as a jail project. The jail was just not a District 3 project. It was a board project, because it's a universal project. And all this directly affects the citizens in Beulah. It's certainly a entire county project. So anyway,
Commissioner Stroberg, and then I'd like to make a comment after you're done.
Is it proper to have, so Beulah Town Center's here, I see them all there. Are they?
You're welcome to ask them a question if you want to.
Will, you want to come up?
Steve, I will say this. The first thing Chad Henderson said was they can switch the numbers, and that's probably.
Well, I'd like to, Commissioner Stroberg, I want to make a comment before Will speaks and you ask your questions, because I didn't really highlight my concerns. And I didn't like y'all changing the number on us. The night of the meeting, we were led to believe, I was at the time, that it was a $50 million deal. And I get it, we're in negotiations and it changed, but that was a little bit disheartening. And, I'm not going to go with 5 different $10 million plans either. That's a no-go with me. I heard Commissioner Berry say that. I don't know where the rest of the board is, but I think that's dead on arrival on this board. The other thing that I'd like to, I guess I need to get out there, and it's either from the county administrator or the county attorney, are you able to negotiate this deal?
Mr. Chairman, I believe we are able to negotiate the deal. What myself and Madam Attorney would like to know is, what is acceptable to the board as a window for closing? Is it 18 months? Is it 48 months? Is it 60 months? What is that expectation of a closing time from the board? Because a lot of what I know we're speaking to price, and yes, that's important, but a lot of what's holding us up is terms and conditions and contingencies. Okay. And we've we have talked about those things, and Commissioner Berry is correct, they show back up in the contract. So a lot of what drives your closing time frame is going to be those terms and conditions and contingencies. Do they need every single permit before they want to close? The amendments, what are the amendments? I don't know. We've not heard yet. We've asked, but we haven't heard. So what are the contingencies? What is the time frame that the board expects to put a closing on the table? Because a lot of that is going to be determined by the terms and conditions and contingencies.
Okay.
That's where we're at. When we settle those and we come to agreement on those, then we can talk about price and see if the price is where we want it to be.
Yeah, Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
So I think, you tell me, Madam Attorney and Wes, if we had 2 full days to redline this contract, we could get it done in 2 full days, couldn't we?
We can provide a red line contract back across the table in a matter of 2 to 3 days, yes.
Yeah, we'll
Business days, yes.
Okay.
But Steve, if we didn't do it in 30, how do we do it in 2?
Yeah.
Because the teams have to sit down together and do this together. That's what they'll have to
There's
do.
going to be a difference.
Madam Attorney?
between
Yeah,
a
I mean,
counterproposal.
and that was the direction that we left the last meeting with.
Hold on, Madam Attorney, I couldn't hear what you said. Could you please?
There's a huge difference between how much time it takes to make a counter proposal versus they're going to want to then counter back. I mean, we've been through this before. It ends up going back and forth.
Right.
It's not that anyone's going to sit on it for
I know,
2 months.
it could
It's
be
just-
contentious, but we could also make sure that we're working on the same revision of the plan, too. That's why I'd like to have it done at that moment. I mean, if it's more than 2 days, then it goes to 3 or 4. But I think that if we don't sit down and have I don't know what you call it, a red line day, if we don't have that, this is going to end up going 30 more days. We might need 30 more. I think originally when you and I had spoken last meeting, I think you said that you would have liked 60 days. You would have liked 60 days. You said they probably would have liked 90 days, and we ended up with 30 days instead, so it hasn't been enough. And you know, something else I want to do is I should have started out this way. When you all got in here, I saw Rob show up. I want to apologize to Beulah Town Center and the other 2 groups for the auction that happened last meeting. It shouldn't have gone that way. This isn't really a negotiation either, but in a meeting like that, that wasn't proper. That wasn't proper, and I thank you, Beulah Town Center, for not walking out, because I thought you were going to be the first ones to get out the door. Okay? Anyway, getting back to the subject at hand, I think that we need to have a day where we sit down and we redline, and if a commission needs to be there, I'd be happy to be there to help. Will, you want to speak?
Well, I'd like to, before you speak, Wes asked, how soon could you close on the property? I mean, that seems to be the question. I mean, what's a reasonable time that you think that if the board decided you could close?
Commissioner Will Dunaway, counsel for Beulah Town Center. The proposal that we were thinking that 18 months could work on a single close. The administrator, and Commissioner Stroberger, thank you for calling me up. The administrator actually stole my thunder, but I did want to comment on the chairman's comment. I just want to make clear because, and again, if you're going to blame someone, it's me. I'm the one to blame for any types of delay, because I'm the one who's listening to you on what you want and then trying to interpret that. And the thing we heard most clearly was that the DPZ plan is what you have to follow it. In fact, it was part of the motion of the approval. And in our term sheet, which we had presented to you before, and the Madam Attorney had asked me to prepare a comparison, which I did, which I believe you also had, it said that the $50 million was a closing phase per the DPZ plan. It's your DPZ plan. It's an ordinance. It's not a suggestion. It's the law. It's the only 500 acres, 540 acres in the county that's zoned in the way that it is. It's zoned in a very particular, detailed way, and it's a 5-year, a 5-year phase over 20-year development plan. So it can't be developed any faster because it's the law. But we hear, and we have talked, and thank you to the administrator and Madam Council who have said, but we're going to make modifications. We believe the board is ready to make those modifications, and we believe that you want to do that. And the only way we know how to articulate that is in the contract. That is the purchase and sale agreements, which we have been going back and forth. It is incredibly important to point out that no one, not the county and not this development group or any other development group who's ever made an offer on this, none of us have ever dealt under this DPZ plan. You've never developed anything under it. You've never issued a permit under it. Nobody knows how it works. Okay, but it's the law. You have seen fit not to repeal it, understood. But in order to move forward with the development of $45 million, a developer needs to know what they can do. Right now, the only thing is what they can do is in this plan. But in our term sheet and in our purchase and sale agreement, we have laid out a timeline that says within 30 days, we will provide you with a detailed deliverables. Within 90 days, we will provide you with an initial site plan. We need you then to approve a master. We are calling it a master development agreement. We made the term up. I made the term up. We are trying to get to something that's not the DPZ plan, which you tell us we're not going to build because the administrator and his staff told us we're not going to accept the $40 million of stormwater infrastructure, which this plan calls for. So, and that was a year and a half ago. So we know what we've been doing. So we've been trying to develop it in 8.1. That's the paragraph of the contract which has the details, which have the concerns. We know you can't contract zone. We understand that. But at the same time, we have to have some assurances as to what we can do, because what we can do is what we're paying for. And if we can't do what we want to do, then we have to adjust the price. Commissioner May says he would never, approve something, development in which you don't have any ad valorem tax on. Fully 20% of the 540 acres is non-buildable, except for civic entities, a fire department. That whole area is zoned civic. We can't develop it. So if it doesn't change, it won't have anything that is producing ad valorem taxes. Again, I'm the one that you blame for that because I've been trying to articulate that in a document, a contract, and using a lot of words because those words matter in trying to get to how we have an organized way of progressing. And we have been working very diligent. But it is true that Madam Council does, and your administrator does need your direction. What about the DPZ plan will you modify? Will it be according to the initial site plan that we lay out? Due diligence starts once you are under contract. Again, the only thing that Beulah Town Center is spending money on now is attorneys. And so, again, the development process begins once you get under contract. And then if it turns out that you're not able to agree to those things, that's part of what a due diligence plan is with all types of commercial litigation. But we are here. We are trying to be very, very responsive. And in fact, from the time that you approved this on the 9th, the next day, Madam Council and I were on the phone setting meetings. We set initial meetings, which we all met, including during the historic snowstorm. We produced an initial PSA in accordance with the terms, a contract, in accordance with the phase process of the DPZ plan. We met with council and the administrator and Commissioner District 4, and they said, this is not what the commissioners want. We want you to do a different contract. We wrote a different contract and submitted it and met again by February the 3rd. So we have that there. We're interested in your feedback. We're interested in your red lines. If there are things that you can't tolerate, then tell us, and we will agree to modify, or we will look and say, we're not the development group that can meet your desires, and then we'll know, and we'll move on. But we have to know how to get around or how to contract the DPZ plan, because currently, no one is bidding on the plan as it is enacted into law. And that is the elephant in the room, which I am telling you is the situation that we're trying to address in the master development agreement. However we can get there, that's what we are trying to do. And again, we're trying to do it under the ordinance that you have enacted. If it wasn't there, we'd be in a regular contract situation like any other piece of commercial property in Escambia County. It would go exactly like every other commercial closing in this county, but this one is different, not because it has anything to do with the people negotiating or you sell property all the time. It's because the zoning here is unique and different and has been not, and we've been told is not going to be what the county wants. So I'm
maybe a
here.
couple-
I'm going to be very responsive. I have very clear marching orders from my bosses and my client to make ourselves available whenever and at what time Madam Council is available, and we're here.
Well, just, if you may want to stand by, I think Commissioner May has a question, but I think what you addressed, we would have the same issues with any one of the folks that, honestly, I don't think that's unique to Beulah Center. Commissioner May, did you have a question?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Will, thank you for your diligence and your hard work. We'll just confirm where I am. Simply, that it was not ready to be bidded. As, the agreement was for $50 million on the DPZ. That's what was said. That's the minutes. There's no way I can get out of that. Now, if this plan does not encompass the ideology of this board, that needs to be addressed. If there are issues within the plan that we can't, abide by, adhere to, then, as he said, public land. Where we are is that we took an offer based on this plan. That's what we did. And so now if we want to change the plan, we want to modify the plan, that's not in negotiation. In all fairness, you set the parameters in an RFQ and RFP and said, this is what we want. You get this many points for this, you get this many points for that, you get this many points for that. You can't change that in the middle of a negotiation. You can't change, constructing a building or a house in the middle without a change order. And so that's why we have to me, in my opinion, define exactly what we want, how we want, and what plan. The bid specifications, there's not any. And so we should have had bid specifications or criteria in which we were going to accept. That's unfair to Will. It's unfair to Chad. It's unfair to the other young man, to do that, without giving people criteria, points, weighted measurements of how we're going to implement this, because if not, it could be an emotional decision. It shouldn't become emotional. It should become based on, merit, right? It should be based on the criteria and the points and the scoring that we did to make it all fair. And so that's where I am. Listen, I know all of these guys and very supportive. I don't think we go wrong. But for me, we agreed to a DPZ plan and we agreed to a dollar amount. If there's a reason why staff comes back and says, there's a deduct, then we have to deduct it. I'm going to go back because we'll be here all day. Jobs, best ROI for me. And how do we get there from here? I don't know. I don't know if we're there today.
Commissioner Hofberger?
I just want to add some detail to your remarks about how we ended up here, because I do have my notes on the dates. I want to start by thanking Will. I served years with you on the NAIOP board. I have nothing but respect for you. Brian, we've built projects together. You build beautiful things, and I appreciate that. On January 9th, at the 11th hour, you guys brought in a $50 million deal that none of us had time to read. We had plenty of time to read over everyone else's proposals, but yours came in after the meeting had already started. So we were not granted the time to evaluate that. We voted on a $15 million deal. We put in a 30-day deadline. 2 weeks later, we got your initial draft back on the 21st, dividing that into 5 parcels. And after we met on the 27th, it became clear to us that there was potential not to close on those last 2 parcels, essentially dropping that down to a $30 million deal. Not to mention fast-forwarding the DPZ plan, which would lessen the property available for jobs and available for commercial, and increasing the amount of property that would be dedicated to residential, which does not give us the jobs for the community that we wanted. Then we moved to February 3rd. The contract was submitted 15 minutes before the meeting began. Again, not really giving Allison or Wes time to digest that, to have a productive meeting. And then last night, we get another offer right before this meeting today, essentially $5 million less than we were on January 9th. So I feel like the board was a little bamboozled on this. We voted on something that was never actually there, and that was that $50 million offer. So I'm not comfortable moving forward with this for those reasons and that timeline.
I appreciate
And can I
that.
just respond to Ashley since you comment? Ashley, I concur and agree with you just because I'm not an expert of reading contracts. I didn't, I don't get paid to read them. So, I mean, it's hard for me to digest.
And it's hard to do when it's handed to you right before.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to have, and listen, and anyway, I would have to have a consultant to
Hey,
understand
Will, don't
that.
go anywhere. I want to ask a question.
All right, Commissioner Stroberger, you're up.
Did you want to speak, Chad? I want to ask you, that early January 9th meeting when we had that $50 million offer, was that for 5 closings? Was that 5 closings in that offer?
Commissioner Stroberg, the term sheet that we had indicated that our price was $50 million, closing phase per the DPZ plan. The DPZ plan is a regulating plan that has 4 regulating plans,
Right.
and then the major commercial middle, that's 5.
So the answer is yes.
Correct.
Right? Yes.
Correct.
We all should know that. I knew that.
How do you know that when you don't have time to review the contract and read? We had
Because
days
you have to
review
understand the
everyone
DPZ
else's.
master plan to start with.
Well, but
I mean, the
I'll
master
be
plan
honest, I
doesn't have
agree with
anything to do with
Commissioner
the
Hoffberger. I
master.
didn't realize till later. I'm sorry, Commissioner
The
Mayor.
master plan, the fact that it shows a phased-out development doesn't have anything to do with title transfers and a property transaction. That's irrelevant.
The one thing I'd like to make a comment, I totally agree with her assessment. I've articulated this to both Fred and Brian. The timelines, for me, I wish were a little tighter. I really do, Will, because it does seem like we're getting things late. Maybe it's just legal stuff. But I do think they haven't got their 30 days yet. I don't know, how much we want to exhaust this. I do think we should, as the board, since we voted on that, at least give them what we agreed to, or maybe more time to, if the board agrees to that.
Here-
What's that, Allison?
I would say at this point, it seemed, and I don't want to jump in if you're not ready.
No, come on. You're,
So I would suggest there would be 3 basic routes that we would like some direction for. The first one would be give us direction to redline the $45 million proposal and send it back and have us report back to this board at its March 6th meeting what the progress is, if there is progress. That would be A. B is if you want us to look at the idea of retaining the services of a negotiator or an attorney or a realtor or some other outside service to deal with this on your behalf, that would be a legitimate route the board could take. Or the third route today, I would say, would be that the board decide that it's not ready and it wants to look more closely at the master plan, the amendments that you may or may not want to do with that. If you want to look more closely at your Florida West, your PEDC economic development piece of this, and then decide whether there's a different route that the board wants to take. I think one of those 3 routes today would be legitimate. If you guys can pick one of those, or maybe you have another idea.
Allison,
Mr.
so the
Stroberger.
money
Hey,
would-
Commissioner May, Commissioner Stroberger's up.
So
I
I think we
apologize.
should
Trying
definitely
to keep-
start the red line process at least, and we haven't given them, I think they need more time, And I think that they won't need as much time if we start the red line process soon. Now, in their defense, how many actual working days did you have to do this? I mean, there was the snow days, there was Martin Luther King holiday, so it wasn't 30, it isn't going to be 30 days. It's going to be roughly, 3 weeks that you had?
The challenge is not the drafting part.
I know,
The
I
challenge
know.
is they have 4 principals that all have, they have to get with their attorney, they have other professionals.
There are lots of challenges.
We have 5 members, we can't make some decisions without
Right.
coming to you all in an open session, whatever. So the challenge is not so much the drafting part, it's the other decision-making piece that goes with it.
Well, Madam Attorney, I appreciate your co's because I actually think that's useful. Commissioner May, you were up. Did you want to?
So, Allison, the sticking points, like you said, I mean, you can negotiate it in a day or 100 days. I mean, if the parties don't agree, it doesn't matter how much time you get. It really doesn't matter how much time you have. Time is not the issue. It's getting to an agreement. So, what were the sticking points in not being able to land this at the agreed? I mean, we agreed to the DPZ plan. We agreed to $50 million. Why didn't we land there?
The $50 million deal is the closings are phased. As Commissioner Hoffberger has pointed out.
So we didn't get there because they were phased.
And there was no guarantee that they would have to close on all the parcels. So essentially, they could have taken the top 3 valuable parcels and left us with the last 2.
It would
One
have
of which
turned
is
in-
mostly undevelopable because of wetlands.
The money, you would not have the money. My impression has been that the board would like to have the ability to spend on different infrastructure or other projects the money that they get from this sale today. There's not a question in my mind that that multi-phased closing would stretch out that money over a number of years. They had, I think, 18 months between each phase for due diligence. And my concern, which I believe is also echoed by Commissioner Hoffberger, the final 2 phases would be, from a developer's perspective, the harder to develop and the less attractive pieces of that property. So there were enough contingencies in their proposal, which we did not redline and negotiate with a counter, but those final 2 phases, which would be $20 million worth, my concern would obviously be that you don't get them to close on those 2 pieces, leaving you with what really ends up then being a $30 million deal over a number of years versus a $50 million deal in one lump sum within 18 months. So
Yeah, I don't think anyone, I know I'm not interested in that.
It
It
seemed
seems like
like
the
a
board isn't
non-starter.
interested in that, so I think that's dead.
So can I ask her a question? So, Allison, was there any reference to jobs and how we partner with Florida West and the job creation
I'm
and the
gonna be-
contract?
I'm going to be very frank with this board.
Well, I appreciate that.
It's very your ability to have a clawback under a grant process like Triumph, and you don't do the metrics that you say you're going to do, there's a clawback. That's easy. It's way more difficult to have a black and white line for job and job creation when you're talking about the sale of a piece of property.
So we can't,
You can
so
certainly.
you're saying in a contract, the intended use of this property was for job creation, and you're saying to me that I can't put anything in this contract that guarantees and provides me assurance to citizens that we're going to do job creation?
So you have to be honest with yourselves about what you're.
I'm trying to be honest with myself.
What the proposal.
The honesty it wasn't even the money. Honestly, when Jim Cronley brought this project forward, it was a job creation project.
You control the zoning, you control the land use, you control the master plan. You can certainly have conditions on how and what is going to be developed there. You can get involved with Triumph, you can do a number of things. But once you sell in fee simple a piece of property, you can have restrictive covenants even maybe. But what do you do 5, 10 years down the road? Someone's already paid you millions of dollars for a piece of property. And let's say you're unhappy that they only developed 200 jobs instead of 2,000 jobs. It's very challenging and difficult to do anything about that as far as a clawback, unless and except controlling the zoning, the future land use, and if you've gotten involved in a grant program. So it's just, I think you have to be honest. This is a sale, these are proposed contracts for the sale and closing on a piece of property.
So we almost, it doesn't matter about the DPs, and we're just basically selling a piece of property and go do what the hell you want to do with it.
No, you have planning tools, land use regulations. We can certainly attempt to do some things to help protect the future use of that property. But 10 years from now, you've already gotten all the money, you got the closing, everyone's moved on. There are very few tools available to you once another owner has that land in fee simple.
And adding detail.
And I don't think that's the intent of myself. I'm not going to speak for Steve. I don't think it's the intent of those who sit on this board, initially to get this property, nor is it the intent of those, the visionaries who brought that property forward, nor is it the intent of our economic development partners, and I'm not going to speak to anybody to my left. That's difficult. I mean, that's a hurdle for me, that I don't have any guarantee on how I create jobs.
But Commissioner, go ahead.
Just adding to
I'm
that,
sorry,
the
Ashley.
DPZ, the way it progresses, the longer they sit on that property, the more and more of that property that will move from being zoned commercial industrial to residential. So we miss the opportunity to create jobs. So that is, yeah, that's a huge issue.
But
Agreed.
y'all, this is government. We're not going to be in the business. We're going to have these same challenges with any one of these builders. And you have to look at their portfolio and decide, and it's a risk. I mean, let's just be honest, it's a risk. We're taking a risk. I mean, you're not giving us Boeing, you're not giving us Pfizer, you're not, I mean, IBM's not coming in and no one does anyone else. If they did, we'd all.
Mr. Chairman, I can address the job issue,
Okay,
specifically
let's hear what you have, Will.
And Will, can I just say
Commissioner
something? Well, I'm sorry. I get the challenge, Mike. Here's, when you put out a request for proposal, that has to be outlined. I get it. Whether it's the challenge or not, it's what was put
I
forward.
understand.
I mean, it's a criteria. I mean,
But we did
I
in
mean,
our
and
opinion, it
so
failed.
I would go here because we're having this very open meeting. The moment Chad Henderson said, well, the number's going to move, the number's not going to be at 50, and, the needle's going to keep moving, you're not going to get jobs, unfortunately, we're negotiating a deal, which I don't think we should be doing in a public forum, which I think is bad. But the perception now is citizens are watching exactly what we do as it relates, and it should be fair to Will, and it should be fair to all other groups. And this is the expectation, and I don't know if we've been clear enough on the expectations that we want, even to our attorney. I mean, I don't think it's been fair. She's had to come here each month and say, I don't know, I can't negotiate, I don't know exactly what you want. We decide, I'm sorry, Will, we just decide what we want and live with what we want and come to an agreement and not move the needle each meeting that we have just based on a conversation. So
Let's
I
have
apologize, Will.
comment, and then I'll go to Commissioner Strober, and then I don't want to do this all day. I think we should come up with some goals. Go ahead, Will. What do you think?
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, to address the issue, the day after you approved on January the 9th, the Beulah Town Center team worked for the next 10 days. We met with Chris at Florida West. We met with PEDC. We met with David Baer. We met with representatives on each of those, working through the process of job creation. We heard you very, very clearly. The DPZ plan, the phased approach, lays out that the development criteria is the northern parcels for light industrial. That's the phase that you're in now, regulating Plan 1, development of the northeast corridor. That is the area off of Frank Reeder Road closest to the Navy Federal Park. That, we met with them. We told them we were partnering. Our plan was going to allow the opportunity for them to continue to work with you as your economic development hand to develop that for economic development, because, again, it wasn't in the first couple of phases for the takedown. When we got together with your staff, they said, that's not what we want. We want a single approach, a single close, a single number. So that's not to say we're not going to create jobs. Obviously, when we purchase the property, we're going to immediately, and that work has already begun, contacting those folks that we have relationships with, the Beulah Town Center has relationships with, to bring them on board to Escambia County to take down these properties. It's job creation comes with the prospect of the master development plan and the agreement. One happens after contract. But again, we hear you on the jobs, and we're working towards that.
Chris, can you come up? I have a question for you. Since at the last meeting, we all agreed that we wanted PDC involved, and I'd like your take. You guys had meetings with, I think, both them and Tri-West. Are you going to be able to work with them? That was one of the goals the board wanted.
I think we can work with any developer that, as long as they're, we're following at least some plan to know that we have additional property that's for that purpose. Yeah, I mean, we'll work with any rules that we have to work with to put in the right
So some of the
job.
concerns Commissioner May and Commissioner Hofberger have on jobs, you think their questions will be answered?
I mean, I would assume, we can definitely find the jobs. It's the, when you say numbers of jobs, as the economy has changed, a lot more automation, projects are going to be a lot more tax-based heavy than they are jobs heavy, but those jobs are going to pay significantly higher. So I think that's where, for the type of projects I think that you want on OLF8, that's where you are. It's hard to set a hard number of jobs just because we don't know the projects that will show up. We have an idea, but there's, facilities that would hold 300 people now hold 40, but they're
Chris.
paid significantly higher.
Chris?
Yes, sir.
So nobody can guarantee a number of jobs that are going to be on that site. Nobody can. We can, and what we do instead is we use startup math to figure out what could go there and how many jobs that we can accommodate on that property. That's all we ever do, right? So no one can make a guarantee, and nobody's making any guarantees. But a certain amount of trust, and legalese is in place to help us create those jobs. And you can work with Beulah Town Center as much as you can work with any of the other groups, right?
I would assume.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would assume so too.
I think we could, I'm willing if the boards, since we haven't
Mr.
met.
Chairman, can I ask you a
Yeah,
question
go ahead,
Chris
Mr.
White?
May.
Chris, and help me, because we fund Florida West, and we fund it on guaranteed jobs. And we don't fund it on hypotheticals in theory that you could create jobs. We fund you based on you committing to commit so many jobs. Rather, it's ST Aerospace, there's a commitment to do so many jobs. Navy Federal, there's a commitment. Blue Wind, there's a commitment. The Tech Park, the reason the Tech Park hadn't been developed because you have jobs that you have within writing and contract that you'll create this many jobs based on this project, correct? So when we say we can't guarantee jobs, we can guarantee jobs.
For each
If not,
individual-
then there's going to be, the reason we gave back to Triumph, the reason Superintendent Thomas didn't take money, when Scott Luther was there, is because of the possibility of the clawback on if they did not create so many jobs, like the Triumph funds that they were going to get. Triumph funds guarantees that you're going to create so many jobs, correct?
Yes, sir. Each project, we would definitely have, as I think Allison had mentioned, with the grant process, there's definitely jobs that are attached to that. There are certain measures that the companies have to meet both, investment-wise and job-wise. So there are performance-based incentives, performance-based triggers for everything. But when you look at a park and you develop it out, you look at basically the type of companies that you want to go there and estimate what those typical projects would generate per square foot, and then try to get to there. But it wouldn't be a hard number because, again, within 5 years, you can see the changes that occur within the economy. You wouldn't want to turn down a $200 million project if it generated, less jobs because of the tax base and the quality of job that it would bring. So you have to be a little flexible in the number, but the expectation is clear that it's making very good jobs that pay well, above the market that we have for the county currently. So
I know that there are 3 projects, Chris, and it was before your time. It was with my friend Rick Breyer, with companies. So have you at least shared the information with all the developers about the companies who had potential of landing a home on outline field aid?
We've not had that opportunity to get that specific. So we've just talked about in concept, you know, how we would work together, so.
Thanks, Chris.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it.
If the board, what I'd like to share what I would consider my option here and see if the board agrees. Since they haven't met the 30 days, I'd be willing to accept Madam Attorney's first COA. Commissioner Berry, I know that Commissioner Hoffberger and Commissioner Stroberger sat in on the first meetings. I'd like maybe you seem like you have the corporate knowledge. I think we all have skin in the game. At the next meeting, I think if you would be willing to do that, if you're open to continue the negotiations, I think it'd be useful to have someone else on the board so that we all see it through the prism of, can we get there? You have a comment?
I'd be happy to do whatever the majority of the board would like. I'm also very comfortable with, you know, with any of my colleagues sitting in there. Whatever y'all would like, I'd be happy to do. But
I'm comfortable sitting in the meeting and shepherd this along, because I think I'm the only one who really wants to shepherd this thing along.
I don't
I
mind
don't
that,
think that's a fair
Commissioner.
statement at all.
yeah, and it's kind of
That is a
We
fair
all want to
statement.
see the project go forward.
it's kind of offensive.
Yeah,
but
actually, Steve, I don't think it's against you. I just think since it's such a big deal, I think Commissioner Berry, with his time on the board, has some experience to be useful. I'm just saying that as a courtesy. But I know we can't do it except for one of us, but Steve, if you want to defer.
I would
Commissioner
say
Berry.
that I probably understand the DPZ master plan as well as anybody else up here, because I've been hearing a lot about it. I know that the people in Beulah understand the phased approach, so I don't know why we don't. So why do they, and why do the developers and we don't? But I do. So I'd like to sit in that meeting.
Well, can we? What's your thoughts, Commissioner Berry? I would have liked to have you on the board just for more input, because we
Yeah.
need 3 votes to move this forward. So I think all of us have skin in the game, but
I mean, whoever wants to sit in the meeting is fine. I mean, in my opinion, there are very, very bad terms for an agency or a municipal government to allow into a contract, and I'm not going to willingly allow that. No.
well, that was my thoughts with you being in there. I
Oh.
thought that maybe you could negotiate those and come back at our next meeting. That was my thought process, but
Well, I mean, I'm going to advocate for, if I was in that meeting, I would advocate in that meeting. If my comments are made here, I'll advocate here. But I'm going to, adamantly advocate for the best interest of the taxpayers, which is a function of the money, and it's a function of the job development on the property. But, there's also a function of the, there have been things over the years, and I will only really talk to Commissioner May about this. There's been things over the years that, if it's things that I would have done differently, maybe with jail construction. There's, looking back, there's some, you make the best decisions at the time that you're told, and you take people's word for it, and sometimes things don't work out that way. But there's probably some things I would do differently. But in this case, what I'm very fearful of as one of the 5 of us is to willingly allow us to enter into a contract that becomes the source of future ridicule for us entering into that agreement. That is a fear, and those are the terms with which I'm just I only get 1 vote. So but I can advocate here just as well as in that private meeting. So if Commissioner Stroberger feels like he can be successful in there and advocate on the board's behalf, then that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, and Steve, since you called my name, I'll respond. And quite frankly, actually, I think me and you are on the same page. I mean, candidly. Commissioner Berry, I think in fairness, I've always acquiesced to, Commissioner Bagash, not Commissioner Stroberger, and to you. I would be very supportive of you sitting down at the table because you have a lot of history. And Commissioner Schroberger and Holberger have both been at the table. I do not desire to be at the table at all. Like, I'm not interested in going to another meeting because this went round and round and round and round. So, I mean, so you can take me off the list. You've had 2 people. Mike, you want to go? Go. Steve, you want to go? Go. I mean, hopefully, you know, the record will go that I've been consistent no matter who the board was. Best ROI for the citizens and jobs. That's all I've ever said. I'm not gotten into town hall centers. I'm not gotten into the residents of Beulah. I'm not gotten into the contract. And my colleague to my right, who I have a vast amount of respect for, is probably more attentive to details than I probably would ever be.
Well, you know, and candidly, some of these details are you know, and Steve, I'm fine with you sitting in the meeting. I don't want anyone to think that because I was in there, that's why somebody's deal doesn't get done. I don't want that being perceived. So if you want to sit in there, that's fine with me, Mike. I appreciate the comments, but.
Well, I want a commissioner in there every meeting.
And I'm fine with Steve. I'm fine with Steve sitting there. I don't have an issue with that. But I did appreciate your comments. But the issues that I have with their, you know, as I mentioned, you know, a couple of times, you know, I like Brian and Fred and Chad Horn, Will. And it's correlative to the D.R. Horton discussions from 2 years ago. You know, I like those guys. I like Scott Whitehurst. You know, I like Joe. I like Matt Wade. I like, you know, a lot of my friends at D.R. Horton. To me, they're good partners, but it became clear we were never going to get to terms on a contract, so, okay. Then we just kind of moved on. But the issues with the terms in that contract nothing's the same. The issues are similar to the issues that we're having here, and, you know, so it's not specific to the entity. And if we were to go down another path, you know, with one of the other proposers, then, and language was in that contract, no matter how I might feel about them, I wouldn't support that either. You know, I don't want to have us enter into something that 2 years from now we look back on and we go, gosh, I wish I wouldn't have done that, because now we have no control, and the control is all in the purchasers. It's all in their court as to when they close, and I don't think we would see closings for a long period of time.
Steve,
No,
just in response, Steve, just in response, you know, candidly, so my commitment to, you know, the 2 surrounding districts, and my commitment and my respect, I hope is visible and prevalent, because at the end of the day, if we didn't care about concurrency, if we didn't care about traffic, there was $62 million on the table for D.R. Horton. You know, I mean, they talked about that number even with me. Now, it would have all been being residential. It probably would have been no jobs. There would have been no creation. If this just would have been a land deal, D.R. Horton would have easily given us $62 million, and it would not have been what the residents wanted. But if it's just a land deal and we have no callbacks, we have no control, you know, then we sell it to the highest bidder. If we just wanted to make money, $50 million is not the number. We break it down. We control zoning. You don't think we can break the lots down and sell it to private developers and just let them build whatever they want to build, and we probably can make $200 million? I mean, but I've been very consistent in being supportive, and you're absolutely right in everything that you said, because when D.R. Horton came, it was not the best deal, in our opinion, for the citizens of East County. We didn't do it. You know, I mean, and so we have been very, you know, I've been very supportive of, Steve, of the citizens of Beulah, whether you were sitting in this seat or whatever, because I know people have to live there, they have to have traffic, you know. But if I just see this as a land deal, I have to have an appraisal and highest and best value. That's what I have to have. If not, then it's a quality of life issue, you know, and there's somebody smarter than me that can help negotiate with Brian. I mean, Brian has developed billions of dollars. I mean, him and Chad Henderson have. They understand development, but we have to understand where we're going. And if we don't have a roadmap to where we're going, like Steve says, regardless if we're out of office, this decision will lay and rest upon us of what way that we go. And so to me, you know, I know everybody wants to say, oh my God, it's been there forever. I can just tell you, there have been people like Admiral Kelly, there's been people like Jim Cronley that have spent 25 and 30 years of their life on this project and who will never get an ROI. I mean, there are a lot of people. I mean, there have been multiple executive directors of Florida West that have come and have gone. For haste makes waste. For me to think that I'm going to make a hasty decision about something that's going to directly affect, my grandchildren, I'm not going to do that. I will say this: I'm not saying that I'm against Will O'Brien's deal at $42 million, $45 million. I know that you tried to get Chad to this number, and we said $50 million, and now when we come to the details and the negotiations, we kind of shifted. That's not, in my opinion, that's going to be something that we have to discuss, and not saying that I couldn't be supportive, but there's going to have to be further discussion about that. I would love to see, if one meeting Strohberger's in there and one meeting Barry's in there, it affects these two guys' district, and I'm gonna support these guys, but I'm gonna hold true to where I am. It's just like Will made a good point, which is, my negligence. There's 20% of the land that's dedicated to, public use. I mean, I don't know if I still agree with that. Maybe when the plan came, I did. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I mean, we got contracts now where we're about to buy property from the school district. I don't know if I'm gonna support giving property to a school district. I had to buy property in Wedgwood from a school district. I don't know if I'm gonna be supportive of doing that. I don't know if the highest and the best use of putting a fire station in there is the best use of public property when we're going to have to maintain infrastructure. We're going to have to maintain roads, stormwater, lighting, all those type of things. I mean, if we just give, we already have 100 acres in Navy Federal that we don't get any taxes on, and if someone gets hurt on that park, EMS still has to show up. I mean, there's a lot of things of consideration that we should think before we do any knee-jerk reaction, and that's why, to me, you got to have somebody that's just laser focused on exactly getting us where we need to be. DBZ gave a plan. I mean, but it's a design. It's kind of like, you get, Ashley's a builder. I mean, we get a pretty design off the computer and we take it to a homeowner to build her a house. They never got the details. They don't even know how big the bathroom or the bedroom is because we never drew up any blueprints because it costs money to draw up the prints. It's easy for me to give her a pretty picture of this nice house with gables and facades and roof pitches, but when I get down to working out exactly, the details of this house and how big the rooms are and how many bathrooms and how many whatever, I mean, it changes the price. And so I just don't know, Mike, for me, if we're there today for that.
Well, in the interest of time, what I'd like to do, I'm going to let Brian talk, then I'm going to let, I know Allison.
And Steve, did I answer? I mean, I was really referring to Commissioner Berry. Did I? Good. All right, thanks.
Are your comments good now? Okay, thanks. Brian, can you please, I know you want to make a comment. I'm going to allow, if you have a couple minutes to share with what's on your mind.
Thank you so much. Brian Spencer, obviously with Beulah Town Center. Appreciate all of you and understand and can empathize with your spirit of debate and analysis. Thank you also. Whenever I've reached out to you, not a single one of you have ignored my phone calls, texts. That means a lot to me as someone that once is in public service. If I get a little bit passionate, it's just because if you're an architect, that's the way you are. I think all of you have the timeline from almost every waking minute from after the vote. Mr. Clerk, was this handed out to everyone in printed form? I don't know if it was printed.
I don't know if we got that. We'll get it from you and have time to review it.
Okay, it's pertinent. It's my backup for this speech. Yes, yeah, thank you. Because I think
Hey, you can break through right there if you want. Okay. Jose's coming down.
Thank
you. Yeah.
Thank you. I just
We may
want to
need the
make sure
deputy to get up here.
out of respect and defense of the legal team that is representing us, and that when you look at this timeline and you will see how this legal team, obviously represented today by Will Dunaway, has not dropped the ball. I just can't emphasize that enough. And I want to let you know that behind the scenes, as was mentioned by your county attorney, the Beulah Town Center partners had to digest what Will and his team, as they worked on weekends, as they worked on Sundays, as they worked during the historic snowstorm, they would be sending material to us. My wife can attest that while it was snowing, I was redlining and marking up and reviewing. This team has not, there has been no moss that has grown under our feet. So I just want to dispel perhaps that misconception. And then, Commissioner Hofberger, I just want to appeal to you that this is different than buying a new wash house business. This is so much more complex. I have done 19 projects in downtown, 3 of which are brownfields projects. It has had layers of jurisdictional oversight, and to make it with some of the best attorneys that specialize in this, no offense to Allison Rogers, but using the best experts in environmental cleanup from Beggs and Lane, they still have required tedious reviews. I'm literally saying, looking at the either's, ors, may, shall, because the devil's are, the devil's in the details. So please understand, I've done things like I created Fish House. I started Fish House. I started Jackson's. I've done 19 projects. The tax assessment value that I have developed with others, including with Jim Cronley, 3 Marriotts, exceed 100 million on the county tax rolls. So to say there's not a hometown developer on this team, I definitely want to end that discussion.
One for the home team.
Go hometown. But this deal has tremendous complexity, and Marina
Brian,
Curry...
is Jim Cronley involved in any way with your group?
No, no, sir. But Marina Curry would be the first to tell you the complexity that Commissioner May, that is beyond that pretty picture that you described. You all paid... Yeah, thanks. DPZ has provided, there is so much depth of community input that is behind that colorful plan. I've worked in municipalities with those master plans. They're golden if they're followed. So don't discount the value that that plan has. Does it have complexity? Yes. Thus, Will Dunaway's tenacious adherence to the plan so that you all aren't faced with contradictions down the line. Now, as for job creation, and I specifically want to look to Commissioner May and to Commissioner Hofberger, please understand, this country, when we step out of this meeting that started at 9, this country will have been whipsawed by some of the latest news on a federal level that is affecting companies and jobs throughout this country. Just talk to the 2 companies that have invested over billions in battery production for EV vehicles and what has happened to them in the past week, and how those 2 towns now don't have the jobs they thought they had. Talk to the investors in AI that 2 weeks ago felt as secure as they could be until 2 new AI players have entered the scene. So to talk about the reliability of representation from us on us, or whether it's anyone standing here, of what jobs they can deliver, as your county attorney is trying to tell you, it is going to be market driven. Now, do we want more jobs? Do we want a thriving mixed-use development? Absolutely. And you all know from knowing the history of Brian Spencer, I am Mr. Walkability. I have done everything to promote urban density development, mixed-use development, and the best high-paid, high-wage paying employers that are going to be attracted to what Beulah Town Center will do is it will be very much based on the quality of the town center that we create. Because the low-paying jobs They don't mind that those workers are stuck commuting for an hour and a half. We have to create a wonderful, attractive, high-density, mixed-use development, and that's what this team does. It's more than medical offices, and that is what I have spent my entire life since returning from Tulane University to Pensacola to try to do. And I am just telling you what I hope we can do. No disrespect to you, because you've been our champion, Commissioner Strohberger. Thank you so much. I want to call you out and recognize you. But if Mr. Berry, Commissioner Berry, has, as he has stated many times, he has what I would call, and I've negotiated, like I said, I've negotiated for 30 years as a developer. If he's got some hard nose, we want to know what those hard nose are. So if we have to have what I would call 5 red line meetings and page turners, it's what they are, then I sat with Ashley. I'm going to use first names now. Unfortunately, I was in Cleveland for medical reasons for the next meeting. I couldn't be there for that. But we want to get there. We want to cross the finish line. Commissioner May, we want to reach that balance of money and jobs. We want to be your partner. I just can't say it any stronger. But please understand, we are also subjected and victims, just as you all are as government, in unexpected changes on a global level. So please don't put on anyone some sort of guarantee, because we'll just lie to you. We'll tell you that we can deliver 1,200 jobs so we can get the 5 unanimous vote. But that's not what's in my track record, is to lie and misrepresent. Okay?
Thank you.
So what we're looking for is 30 days of extension. 5 of you, each one of you, sit down. Let's find out what is your no-go, and if we get there, great. If we don't, you all have made progress, because now you've learned more about one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Mr.
And
Chairman?
your passion is impressive. Yes, Commissioner May?
No, I was going to respond to Mr. Spencer. Brian, first, thank you. I know what you did. I mean, you and your development downtown. I mean, so your reputation is unprecedented. And I was supportive at the last meeting as we move forward. I mean, I think, I've never been reserved in telling you that the dollar amount in the jobs occur, but you've helped today just in your statement. And, and I would challenge that to Florida West and to our friends over there. Whether it's light industrial, whether it's AI, I mean, quite frankly, had we made a decision on yesterday, it might be different than today. Had we made it before January 6th, it may be different than today. Because when we see, the amount of dollars that will probably not be available from the federal government, how, jobs are being redirected, about, the way in which economic development is being perceived by our country, these are healthy conversations. And so I think that adding value brings someone of your caliber to come and have these open discussions that helps us define our criteria and where we're going. I mean, I've said this since I've been on this board. If you don't have a mission and a vision statement, there's no way to land anywhere, and this helps us to get it where we need to be. In no way I've been opposed to any of the developers. I've just wanted to put the onus on us to give clear direction. And, as you just said, any developer can get up there and lie. I mean, that's, they have the developers, lawyers, politicians, whoever, preachers, whoever, all of them. You could say anything, but in God we trust. All of us write it on the dotted line. And long after you're gone and you're not a part of the development team and we're not here on this board, there has to be criteria, contracts, and goals that are in place that can be easily hand off, because as my friend Commissioner Berry said, all of our reputations will be on the line for what we did for this project. So yours as well. And so, Brian, I appreciate your passion, and my reluctancy is not to go against anyone. It's for better clarity, better direction, better support for our negotiating team. And you have a team. And, you know, the unfortunate thing about it is, you know, Commissioner Stroberger sits one day, Commissioner Holberger sits one day, Commissioner Berry sits, and then Commissioner Colden and Commissioner May, and we're all sitting at the table of negotiations with all of our blinders on. What's important to each of us, which in some way gives your team a false sense of what's going to be accepted when we get to this public meeting, because we all have our different ideologies of what we think is important. And so we have to clean that house up, to me, in order to make it a fair and equitable opportunity for all, Brian. And so I do appreciate you, and, you know, I appreciate you guys stepping up. I walked out of here, and I've never hugged Kohler before in my life, but I said, man, that was $50 million, man. I'm going to have a merry-go-round and a slide.
It was a big, beautiful hug.
Yeah,
It
I mean,
was-
and so, but, you know, now, you know, so for me, and I've said that, Brian, you know, and so $5 million is another $1 million for Steve, another for Stroberger, Ashley, me. $5 million means a lot, you know, in my district. It means a lot in Brownsville. It means a lot in Montclair. It means a lot in Wedgewood. It means a lot in Lincoln Park to go there. But if we can't get there, I mean, I think that a great negotiation is fairness to all. And whatever the fair number is that I don't know, because I'm not in negotiation, whatever is fair is right. And, you know, and we have to make sure that it's right for the developer, because you wouldn't do this if you wasn't making money. But at the same time, you know, we laid, you know, $20 million on the ground of taxpayer dollars that they deserve an ROI too, not just the people of Beulah, but the people of all of Escambia County. So thanks, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. So that's where I am. I mean,
All
we
right,
go
we're
round
going to
and
wrap
round
this
because
up shortly,
I'm not
Brian.
going
If
to be
you
here
got a
long.
30-second comment.
I'm just asking for the opportunity to continue negotiations, and if you'll study that timeline, please, you'll understand this team has been committed and recognize time is valuable. And Lumen May can go there for his red line session, and he can put a line through a certain figure, and that's what negotiations are. But if we don't continue negotiations, we'll never get there.
Yeah. Madam Attorney, I
And
know you
Brian, I
had
promise
something
you I won't
on-
be there. I won't be at the
Can we
negotiation.
have some order here, Commissioner May? Madam Attorney, can you add a comment? Earlier, did you want to
Oh,
say something?
I mean, I was just kind of trying to nudge ahead, which is I'm reading what you guys are saying, that we're going to come back on March 6th with an update to you all. We're going to do a red line counter proposal on the $45 million, and
Well, but you can make that
trying
in
to
your
divine
comment with them
from
when
the
you meet with
comments
them.
of everybody.
You'll make that, are you going to meet with them? I said they,
Do we,
Yeah.
that's a good question. Do we have to make another motion to move forward with the negotiation at a
Well,
lower
you're,
amount? Or how does that
technically, you're
work?
in a committee of the whole, so I'm just trying to get a
Yeah,
feel
it's
for what the
discussion.
general direction is, so I don't,
Just give conversational.
So how
we
does
can just
that
give
work tonight?
conversational direction.
I can,
but Steve, I didn't hear you. Can you repeat what you said?
I'm fine with just doing a red line.
I was just saying, we can give conversational direction this morning. They can take that.
I would, I do want to, I know Commissioner Stroberger, you're passionate, it's in your district. Commissioner Berry, I really would like you to do a red line with them, just because your experience being on the planning board. If you don't want to, I get it, but I think it would add value. For me, it would, and I'm going to sit down with you guys. I think you should all. So if we don't get there, you can't say the board didn't exhaust their efforts. I'm doing everything I can to try to make the right deal. I hope the other commissioners see. We've been here
Okay.
an hour and 40 minutes trying to
Yeah.
entertain this, but I would encourage every commissioner to sit down and do what they think is they can accept and what they can't.
Mike, I'm happy to sit down as well, not in lieu of someone else, but I'll sit down and talk to them.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, so since we're at the Cal, I guess the discussion is we're going to get them for legal and each of us to work with Beulah Center and till March 6th. Is that our next board meeting? Our official one, is that what you're asking, Allison? Well,
at
tell us
least-
what you want. You need to tell us what you need.
The first or the second meeting in March, please. The 20th of,
It'll be the 6th and the 20th.
well, we have legislative day in March, so,
Yeah, it'll be the 6th or go after that because
It's-
it's spring break and legislative days.
yeah, so our board meeting is on the 25th, is that correct? The March 25th?
So we would still need to, since the original motion and the original thing we voted on was $50 million and a 30-day negotiation, we would still have to
We
change
can't,
that
we don't
tonight,
vote on
right?
that on a Cal. but,
No, but tonight, we would still have to change that tonight?
Well, I think it's fair enough to say that that has failed, we can certainly have, if you want me to put on the agenda for tonight a discussion item and let you guys, we can have a motion that just says that that's not succeeding.
I'm not going to move.
Failed, you can continue to negotiate. I've not heard Brian say it failed. Continue, if we're going to extend this to negotiations, you continue to negotiate with them and then bring back and see if we can accept it. I mean, I'm not going to say to citizens that I said we're going to get 50 million and just take it off the table. It's still a part of the negotiations. We just extended the negotiations, whatever it may. It may come back at 30 million. It may come back at 50 million. It may come back at 60 million.
I'm in
It's
favor
still
of extending the
negotiations.
negotiations.
If that's what we want to do, just extend it.
Snowstorm, I think that's the honorable thing for the board to do under the conditions we've had the last few weeks.
Commissioner Hoffberger, no, I'm happy to sit down, as Mike asked, and talk about, I'm only going to be talking about terms, and I'm not, I'm not saying I accept the 45, I'm just saying, I don't know that it even matters. I mean, that's, I guess, as far as the number, if we can't eradicate some of the terms that are in the offer, I mean, so I'm not saying I would take the 45, but it's not even a discussion if we can't get better terms.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Stroberger, and then I'll go to Commissioner May. And then I'd like to, by 10:45, move forward and close this meeting if we can. I don't know. A lot of comments this morning.
Okay, because I know, Allison, you're not going to be here next
February,
meeting.
correct.
Next meeting.
On
Lumen's
February
not going to be
20th, I'm
here
not here.
for March 6th. The next one is March 25th.
Correct.
Can we agree on that? March 25th?
I'm
We a
willing to
meeting
do
on the
that.
25th?
Are you okay with that?
Okay. Yeah, and the other thing is, so I'm issuing because I know my wife's watching, I'm going to issue my second apology to the board here. I know we're all working on this, and my passion often comes out as anger. This is why, when I was a young Marine, I was told I'm not allowed to touch anybody in negotiations. It was in a class I had. I'll tell you about it later. But
Please do.
I think we're going to move along. I think the progress is good. And Stephen, if they think that they want, I don't know, I hate the word diversity, but if they want you on there to kind of push it, then I'm happy to do that too. Okay?
I think we got our do-outs. You're going to meet with all the commissioners that are interested. We're going to go through some of the things that each have different skill sets with Wes and Allison. You got till the 25th. Let's see where we end up. All right. Is there any further discussion on that? All right. So this, the next Cal in March 6th, even though this won't be done, I'd like to bring up the Bay Center as a point of discussion, if everyone's okay with that. So Wes, if you could prepare with Michael Capps and all the people we need to brief the board and see where we go. I know that's a point of discussion a lot of us have concern about. All
So,
right.
Steve, Commissioner Kohler, Commissioner, do you want to just bring up the sports arena in any way at this same meeting? I mean, to me, if we're going to bond things, they both kind of go hand in hand.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Did you recommend
I'm
doing the
sorry.
Sports Center at the same time?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I don't care. It's up to you. You want to put that both on there and it's two discussions or one discussion?
You don't want to, I don't care.
Well,
What do you think, Steve?
If what we're, well, there's a presentation that's going to be going to TDC. I was hoping that it was going to go in 2 weeks, and that it would, we missed that firm deadline by a couple days. So that's going to be now coming to y'all in April, related to the NEP. The developments in NEP, yeah. So part of that is going, so that is going to come to well, today's Thursday. It's ready to go tomorrow, but like I said, there was a deadline this past Tuesday that was that they weren't able to meet. So so that's going to be coming to y'all in April. Whatever else goes on, I do see it. It looks like it's differentiating into two distinct projects, and one is, probably not going to be as, hopefully not be as controversial, not be as much discussion as the part in the southern part of the county. That's going to leave leaves a lot of bonding capacity for the project, down here. I'll just say down here, where wherever exactly here is, and so I think that's the bigger part of the discussion. And it seems like we've got one big discussion now. If what you're talking about is the Bay Center and maybe an adjacent facility or a conference or whatever that is, I see it as kind of separate from the the ball field part, which is now a much smaller piece of a discussion. But it's, like I said, that's not going to TDC until April.
So do you
18th,
want to
I
just
believe.
do the Base Center, Commissioner Berry?
Yeah, and whatever else is the.
Well, I think it's good to get the brief, and then we still can move forward. It's just an
Yeah.
informational brief. So,
I mean, the Base Center and whatever else
Okay.
might be going there.
you good,
Yeah,
Wes?
That's
All right.
fine with me.
So any other discussions on the CAL? All right, we'll meet today again at 4:30, and we're done for this meeting's adjourned. Yeah.